Just because the title says high impact moves doesn't mean it's necessarily positive. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Red Seat Radio. My name is Corbin, and the Boston Red Sox got their teeth kicked in yesterday. But before yesterday's game, they also made a whole host of roster moves, and there's one person on this team right now who just made a really surprising statement. So what we are going to do in today's videos, we're going to go over all the latest Red Sox roster moves and talk about how it's going to impact the 2024 team. Thank you all very much for clicking on this one. Let's get into it. All right, so the first thing that we need to talk about, we'll just start with the smaller of the news, and that is that Brayan Bello has officially been put on paternity leave as of yesterday. Obviously, first and foremost, a huge congratulations to Brayan Bello and his family. I hope everything went all right there, and it's probably a pretty good feeling for Brayan Bello right now, but what this means for the Red Sox specifically is honestly not a whole lot. Obviously, with MLB's paternity policy that we talk about all the time on this channel that feels like it needs to be a little bit longer is just 3 days. So Brayan is not going to miss really anything. He's going to make his next start right on time. He'll be back before we know it. The reason I bring this up, though, is because the move to supplement the loss of Brayan Bello for these 3 days is to bring back up Cam Boozer, who, of course, after we talk about how bad of a move it was that the Red Sox decided to go with Bernie and not Cam Boozer, he came in and he gave up 2 runs in 1 inning, and he just did not look as good as he has lately on the mound. But overall, it's still kind of up in the air for me which one I'd prefer on this team right now. I love Bernardino. I think the ceiling is higher for Bernardino, but the Red Sox need to continue to win games right now, not potentially over the next couple of months. Well, they actually need to do both, but right now they really need to focus on putting themselves together as soon as humanly possible. Is that Boozer or is that Bernardino? I don't really know. What makes this interesting to me, what makes this move specifically interesting to me, is what they're going to do when Brayan Bello comes back. Are they going to option Cam Boozer again, or are they going to go with somebody else, right? Zach Kelly's been struggling a little bit lately, as much as I love him. Bernardino we just talked about as well. You have another pitcher in this bullpen right now that we're going to talk about in a second. Is that someone they bring down? I don't really know. There's a ton of different options here for the Red Sox when Bello gets back. And like we talked about when Cam Boozer was initially optioned, this could be an opportunity for them to right a wrong if they truly feel like, hey, maybe we shouldn't have sent Cam Boozer down to AAA. But again, either way, small move here. Brayan Bello on the paternity list for Cam Boozer. The other more high impact move, specifically talking about this series the next couple of days, is that the Red Sox had to place Cooper Criswell on the COVID IL for the next couple of days. Now, for those of you who don't know, the COVID IL is specifically designed just for people who get COVID. So obviously, you got COVID. Once you're put on there, it's 7 days from that day. It cannot be anything less. So at the bare minimum, Cooper Criswell starting today is out for 6 more games before he could come back and rejoin this Red Sox team. And obviously, this is kind of a big hit. I know it's not a super long or lengthy stay on the IL, but at the same time, too, the Red Sox pitching staff is in a whole lot of shambles, right? They are not doing very well right now, and losing any depth at the major league level is a massive problem, but it's specifically a high impact move on this series because right now the Red Sox are down Nick Pivetta. He is not going to make the start he was scheduled to make today. They were going to rely on Cooper Criswell to give them these innings. The Red Sox bullpen got kind of burnt yesterday. In fact, they sort of fell apart yesterday. It was up to Cooper Criswell to sort of right the ship here, right? Get them some really valuable innings against a team that really could end up playing a factor in whether or not you make the playoffs by the end of the year. This is what you're going to be doing for the rest of the season. You're going to be battling, and if this bullpen, which is already on fumes, has to step up even further, I don't know how that is going to go. So yes, of course, this is a really big impact on the 2024 Red Sox, not because he's going to be out for the rest of the season, but because this is a really important stretch here, and you need all the help you can get. Now, the Red Sox did try and reinforce Cooper Criswell being out with COVID. They brought up Brad Keller, who I'm sure a lot of you guys recognize as someone who wasn't exactly the most productive on the field for the Red Sox earlier this season. Out of the bullpen for the Sox, he had a 5.40 ERA, but a much lower 3.71 FIP, meaning he's actually getting pretty unlucky out there on the mounds, and an 83 ERA plus, good for about 17% below league average production. He was the white flag guy. He was the guy that, hey, if you're losing by a ton, put in Keller. If you're winning by a ton, put in Keller, right? Him and Chase Anderson kind of split that role for a little bit for this Red Sox team. I think the Red Sox just simply needed someone with an arm, and Brad Keller just happened to have two of them. They just needed a body in that bullpen, someone who is going to have at least some major league experience. Brad Keller just simply fit that role. I don't expect to see him much. I was worried about whether or not the Red Sox were going to end up having to start him in today's game against the Astros, again in a really pivotal series here. That would have been absolutely brutal, but they did end up going with Josh Winkowski, which again just sort of makes this bullpen that much weaker, right? You're taking Cooper Criswell out. Now you got to put Josh Winkowski in the starter role. You used 4 bullpen arms last night, including Lucas Sims, Luis Garcia, Zach Kelly, and Cam Boozer. You don't really have a ton of options outside of them to be able to get the job done tonight. However, what I will say about Josh Winkowski before we get back to Brad Keller is the fact that he's actually been better as a starter this season than he has been as a reliever. Overall, it's a pretty solid season for Josh Winkowski, but as a starter, he has a 2.33 ERA in 5 starts versus a 4.15 ERA out of the pen. But what's interesting about this is that the OPSs are basically exactly the same. So I don't know if he's better at limiting damage as a starter, or if he's just getting lucky as a starter, but either way, hopefully we can get some of that 2.33 ERA type magic in tonight's game. But going back to Keller here, he's not going to be here for a while. He's going to be here for basically these 7 days, and then he'll either be optioned or DFA'd, whatever one is left on his contract or whatever. So I'm not expecting to really see Brad Keller at all. He's sort of that break glass in case of emergency reliever out there. He's going to be the dude that if you've used everybody else in that bullpen, give it to Brad. We just need someone to get through this 6th inning or 5th inning or whatever it is that Brad Keller needs to come into. We're already winning by 6. We're already losing by 6. You guys know the drill. Brad Keller up here for a couple of days. But again, overall, taking a look at this move, it might not be a high impact roster move that's going to drastically change this team for the next 3 months, but it's absolutely going to change everything over the next couple of days because of what it means for the wear and tear on this bullpen and what it means for Alex Cora strategy-wise going into the next couple of games. It's not just roster moves that we need to talk about in today's video. So before we get into that, do me a favor, make sure you guys have hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you're new here, we talk Red Sox content almost every single day. Also, make sure you guys have hit the like button on this video as well. Just helps these videos out a ton, and it's the best way you can let me know you're enjoying the content we are putting out. Thank you all very much for taking a second to do it. So let's get into some other news. The big and kind of surprising news that came out yesterday for the Boston Red Sox was that Trevor Story is making a giant step forward in his rehab recovery process. In fact, he may actually be able to come back this season after all. On Monday, he will be taking batting practice on the field, which I know doesn't sound like a ton, but this is kind of one of the bigger steps in getting himself back and towards a rehab assignment. It's basically BP on the field, live BP, and then a rehab assignment, which means possibly seeing Trevor Story in a Red Sox or I guess a Woo Sox uniform over the next couple of weeks and possibly getting him back over the next, I would say, month or so, right? Towards the beginning of September, which would be absolutely wild considering how this season started for him. He talked about wanting to come back when he was in Colorado, saying, I'm over 50% of the way there. I would say at this point, he's probably pushing 80% of the way towards being healthy again. After this bullpen session, you're probably looking at 90% of the way towards being healthy again. Alex Cora, in fact, said such a big jump that he's now fully convinced that Trevor Story will be able to come back and help the Sox on this stretch run here. And look, at the end of the day, Trevor Trevor Story is the second highest paid player on the Boston Red Sox for a reason. It's because his ceiling is probably one of the highest on this team right now, right? This is a guy who could totally change this Red Sox lineup. It absolutely either way is going to change the Red Sox defensively. Getting Trevor Story back puts a Gold Glove infielder at shortstop. It puts a Gold Glove caliber center fielder in center field, a Gold Glove caliber left fielder in left field, right? You would have a really strong defense for this stretch run if Trevor Story were to come back. The big question here is, what is the bat going to look like? I remember over the last couple of years, Trevor Story trying to push himself back to get to this Red Sox team, sort of rushing his way back, and it did not end up looking very good, right? Statistically at the plate, he could not get his timing down in AAA before he got up to Major League Baseball, but just sort of skipped that step and ended up hurting the team in the long run, I think, because he just wasn't very productive at the Major League level. Can he get himself right in time to actually make a legitimate impact on this team? Because if he can get his timing down and get into a baseball mindset over a really short span here, obviously having that bat as the number 5 bat in your order or number 4, wherever you want to place him, would be absolutely massive. It adds more speed to the lineup. It adds a lot more power to the lineup, and it's a presence that kind of scares pitchers, which is a fantastic thing to put in the heart of this order, especially with Connor Wong, who's been struggling basically since the All-Star break. It's just a matter of whether or not he can get there. I'm not fully convinced that he's still going to be back. I think it's going to take a bit of a miracle here, but the Red Sox are going to need a bit of a miracle if they want to continue to try and get into a playoff spot. They're going to need all the help that they can get to get in. And if Trevor Story's willing to help, again, I know people don't believe it, but he does have a really high ceiling when it comes to how he could impact a team. If he could do that and come back and be that guy, I'm all in on him trying to get back here and doing that for this Red Sox team because they absolutely need it. Overall, taking a look at everything here, it's a bit of a mixed bag. I think the most important thing to take note of is the Cooper Criswell injury because of what it means specifically for this series and really the next series as well. Obviously, the Brian Bayo one, not so much. And then obviously Trevor Story is more so just something to keep your eye on as opposed to get excited about, at least in my opinion. If he starts doing a little bit of live BP, in my opinion, over the next couple of days, then that's something to get really, really excited about. But until then, let me know in the comment section down below, what do you think about all this? What do you think about the roster moves? What do you think about their impact? What do you think about Trevor's story and him coming back? Do you like it? Do you not like it? Let me know all your thoughts in the comment section down below. As always, if you made it to the end of this video, do me a favor. Make sure you guys have hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you're new here, we talk Red Sox content almost every single day. Also, make sure you guys have hit the like button on this video as well. It just helps out a ton, and it would mean a lot to me. Don't forget, you can always get these episodes in podcast form if you want to listen instead of watch. All you got to do is head over to your favorite podcasting app and look up Red Seat Radio. Thank you all very much for clicking on this one, and I will see you in the Red Seats.